Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and this afternoon I'm joined by Chris McElwain. We sit here 2-0 down at Easter Road. Deservingly, I've got to say, Chris, because it's not been a great first half performance. I don't subscribe to the fact that it's all down to the final ball not being good enough or any of this kind of stuff. And near the end of the first half there, and we'll talk about some of the incidents, but near the end of the first half, I'd already written down here the changes I would make at half time, and that was before the second goal goes in. So it's not a knee-jerk reaction to the second goal going in, but I'll explain who I would be taking off at half time. What's been the problem in the first half? I know that when you come back from a European game, that's often used and relied upon as a reason for a passive or an under par performance. We've definitely had that. But it's just, I've looked at some of the individual performances, Chris, and they're miles off it, absolutely miles off it.
Yeah, I think if I was describing the performance, I'd call it passive. Me and you spoke about standards and expectations and the levels you've got to hit consistently when you're playing for this team. And I think probably to a man today, they've been nowhere near it. Got to give credit where it's due. Hibs, I think, started strong and have continued to play very, very well. But we are making it very easy for them by virtue of the way we're playing. You don't like to target individuals. We'll look at the first goal. It's a combination of not being strong enough in midfield. Greg Taylor's positioning, absolutely diabolical. It just offers no support whatsoever. And from looking back at it, it looks like both our centre backs are far too close to each other and not marking in the right zones. But it's just that we haven't really got out of first gear at all. Be very, very slow with our distribution, both from the back and up front. Ida and Kuhn, I think, are particularly guilty of that. Not releasing the ball quickly enough, being far too cautious on the ball, not necessarily taking enough risks, but just not showing the same levels of energy. You compare the two teams. Hibs are, showing energy. They're tracking forward as a team. We seem just real trepidatious, probably the best word to use. We just don't seem to be, driving into the areas that we should be. Maybe the exception is Maeda, who, was unlucky with a header early in the game. McCowan's had a couple of nice touches, but his positional play's not been great. I wouldn't say. And nobody's really managing to impose themselves on the match. You're looking for someone to step up and take a bit of responsibility, and I'm not seeing that within the team here. So, look, at the same time, 1-0, I probably wouldn't have felt too bad at half time. I'd have thought, okay, with some changes, you could see us getting back into this, because we did have enough of the ball that we could make something happen. But at 2-0 down, we've put ourselves under a massive amount of pressure now for the second half. So I would say there's wholesale changes required.
Well, we spoke about wholesale changes at the beginning of the game, didn't we, Chris?
We did.
The one player that I'm going to say has been trying to take the game by the scruff of the neck, unsuccessfully, but it's clear that he is up for this and he is trying to drive at the Hibs defence, for me, is Nicholas Kuhn. And I think he's done it on both sides of the park. You've got an issue there on the left-hand side with regards to the position, which we already know about, the lack of positional awareness of Greg Taylor. I think when you look at the amount of times he's lost the ball, the amount of times he's passed the ball back, he was lucky actually with the booking, because that was a really poor tackle.
Very lucky, yeah.
And the reason that he's had to make the tackle, if you rewind 2 or 3 seconds back, is because he's played a really poor header and lost possession, and then he's lunging into 2 tackles to try and win the ball back. Listen, I'm not going to use it as a Taylor, bashing expedition. However, he has been one of the poorest on the park, as has Adam Ida. And it's not, sometimes I look at a centre forward, Chris, and I think, regardless of who's in there, he's not getting the service. Ida's had plenty of the ball. He's had a couple of opportunities where he could play his teammates in, and it was pretty clear that they were in better positions. And he's been poor. There's no two ways about it. I know Grant is trying his best to be fair with regards to the wind and overplaying passes, etc. That first half performance is miles off it. And in actual fact, I'm going to bring in some of the comments, Chris, because it's not just about you and me venting at clean here. There's a lot of people who are very frustrated with that first 45.
Understandably.
It's interesting here, Chris, right? Because remember the anomaly, that display at Ibrox. Barry O'Sullivan says this is just as bad. Listen, it's up there. Not taking anything away from Hibs today, by the way, because I think from the very first moment, They have, they've competed for they've been first in most 50-50s. I'm going to go right back to the opening goal, though. When you lose a goal in the first couple of minutes, to be honest, I don't panic. I really don't panic. And like yourself, if you're going into half time, you can say, that was absolutely rotten in the first half. Make a few changes. Let's go again. That first goal, though, when you look at it, was a disaster from Celtic's perspective. And I know a lot of the focus is on Callum McGregor and the fact that Callum McGregor should have chased the run, etc. Where's Taylor? Taylor's in no man's land. Again.
For the first time.
So for me, it's a really poor goal for us to lose as a team. But we need to show at that point an ability to do the basics, and we've not been doing that right, and I'm talking about stringing the passes together, retaining possession when you're in the final third. We keep losing the ball in the final third, and winning 50-50 balls. They're the basics, Chris. They're the prerequisites, and we're not even doing that right. So if we're angry and frustrated sitting here, you imagine what Brendan Rodgers is going to be like after all the plaudits, and quite rightly so, of midweek. You come out and you give us that kind of performance. We need to start talking about changes. So let's bring in some of the comments here, because quite frankly, I was making these changes before the second goal goes in. So it's no knee jerk. And people are actually saying they would have made them earlier. George Nicholson, we need a double substitution right away. Taylor and Ida have looked like two players that don't want to be here. Listen, George, I agree with the performance element of it. The other side of it, I think, Ida was getting so much stick, and then he went on a really, really good run. So I can't be knee-jerk. I can't go from one end of the scale to the next. He's having a poor game. He's having a poor game. Taylor has been shown up for the weaknesses that we know Taylor has, and that's the reason why this season we've already signed two left backs. We signed Schlupp. That we know that we need to strengthen at left back, and we're not giving him the deal that he thinks he deserves. So I think everybody at the football club and most fans realise that their weaknesses existed already. They've been exposed today. Hibs have exposed them. Will McMillan, Ida and Taylor have been pretty awful. I think that's the two that tend to be coming up. What is it about Easter Road, says CJ? Brendan Rodgers' teams. I remember there was a couple of venues, there was a couple of away grounds that became really bad hunting grounds for Celtic for a long time. Easter Road was one of them, and the Tony Macaroni was another. Then when Ange came in, we seemed to get the monkey off our back in that respect, even though the last time Hibs beat us was under Ange Postecoglou. But yeah, it's another one of the Easter Road performances. But CJ, there's 45 minutes to put it right. This is the thing, Chris, right? I look at this, I go, right, the guys that that are quality in the Celtic side are still quality. They're still the guys that put in the phenomenal display against Bayern Munich. I think the only saving grace for Taylor at half-time will be if Johnston is forced off. I can't see us making the two changes in the full-back areas. I think we'll need to keep a Hatate for later on in the game, for example. But let's look at it, right? You're in the dressing room. You're saying this has not worked. This has absolutely not worked in the first half. Is it a personnel issue, Chris? Is it shape? How do you approach it in the second half?
I think, we mentioned it pre-match that sometimes you measure players on how they react to situations. They need a reaction. And I think, you need a Brendan Rodgers rocket at halftime, to be honest, and remind them, as we spoke about, of the standards required at this club. At the moment, they are not hitting, for me, the minimum standards that you need at this club. I think the individuals have been pointed out, Ida and Taylor, the criticism today is probably fair. I would say it's, we're not basing that on how they've played over the period of months, but Ida today, very, very slow with his distribution, his decision making. A couple of occasions he's not played to the whistle, which is something that annoys me. Until the whistle goes, you continue playing, as far as I'm concerned. I felt as though he gave up on a couple of chances, thinking he was offside, which is poor. Taylor's positioning and the things we're talking about, they aren't new issues. These are issues we've seen before, but you are relying on the manager to say, okay, tighten up, stop gallivanting forward. Your first job is to defend. You are looking for the manager to kind of say to Greg Taylor, get yourself and keep yourself in a position, support your defenders, close your men down. But fundamentally, I think the manager will be telling them, look, back to basics here. Do the simple things and do them well. If he makes changes, we know we're bringing on quality with Jota. We know what Schlupp has brought to the table since he's come in. A bit more physicality, a bit more, I think, of a presence, a bit more awareness. Certainly uses that experience. So I think they could be two obvious changes. As you say, some of it will depend on the fitness of Alistair Johnson, who definitely took a sore one there. I'm surprised to see him stay on, to be honest. Although, Tony Ralston, we know he's got a good cross on him as well, could, will definitely put in an honest shift. But yeah, I mean, collectively, I think the manager's just got to look at how do we address some of the qualities that Hibs are showing. I mean, Boyle and Bowie in particular, they're almost bullying our centre backs, and I think we need them to toughen up and not be weak as what, as I think they've been at times in that in that half. So yeah, areas all over the park I think we need to improve. Could be a game potentially at some point you look for Hatate come on, give you a bit more energy in midfield and a bit more drive and do that press he's been doing so well in the last few games. At the moment, I don't know if we're getting enough of that. But for me, there's a passiveness to our play in the first half that needs to change. We need to show urgency, and we need a reaction.
We definitely need a reaction. Talking about a reaction, we try our best not to overreact, particularly at half time. What you're hoping for is something positive to change at half time. I'm going to bring in more of the points. I think the second goal, again, you can look at individual errors. We've been playing balls like that into the Hibs box all day long and not getting on the end of them. They managed to get on the end of theirs. You're asking yourself, who's marking up? Why is Trusty A, playing them on side, and then B, not winning the header? And you just got to watch the goal back. Look at Carter Vickers' reaction when the ball hits the net.
Yeah, he's annoyed. Yep.
Look at who he looks at. He is absolutely raging at Trusty. And by the way, listen, knee-jerk aside, because we were praising Trusty before this game. We were praising Ida before the Bayern Munich game, and we've got to try and remain balanced. They're having bad games today, and we can make the changes. You could look at that and say, right, if we're going to change for the 3 or 4 worst players on the park, you're taking off Greg Taylor, you're taking off Trusty, you're probably taking off McKeown, you're taking off Ida. But that's knee-jerk. And Brendan Rodgers, I think, might make 1 or 2. One of them actually might be forced. Johnson might have to come off. Someone points out there, and I think it's a good point, Taylor's on a booking. Absolutely. Yes. I agree, Alex. That would be a disaster, 2-0 down on a red card. He's been a bit rash with some of his challenges. So he needs to come off, regardless of his performance. Here's where Rodgers earns his millions, says Joe Fulham. And you know what? I'm not writing them off just yet. We'll revisit this at full time. Henrik McLarsson thought we had binned the Easter Road hoodoo. Well, we shall see at 90 minutes plus today.
We still might.
And Chill Pill, McKeown should be fresh. He's well off the pace today. Yeah, he has not impacted the game the way you would expect him to. How can a team put in polar opposite performances in 2 games? I can give you the cliche, Alistair, of European hangovers and all this kind of stuff. But I think we freshened the team up, to be fair, and we shouldn't be able to put that kind of thing in. There was something else in here. Green Smoke says, we'd spend millions, they spend hundreds of thousands, yet this happens. Yeah, that's football, isn't it? Queen's Park beat Rangers. We gave Bayern Munich a great game. Sometimes it's not played on paper. You've got to turn up. You've got to be 100% in on the game plan, and you've got to be brave at times. I don't think we've been brave enough, either in attack or in defence. So
I would agree.
Absolutely, this is football. This happens. And by the way, Hibs have signed 50 players in 5 years and had 5 permanent managers in 5 years. So they have wasted a lot of money, but nothing like the amount of investment Celtic have had. Donny, Tiny Hands, Maeda through the middle and Jota on the wing. Sounds like a song. And the Slabbering Cabbage. I still think we'll win it, but we need Ida and Taylor off. A woeful pair. Slabbering, I'm not sure if that came in just before the second goal, mate. If so, do you still think we'll win it? Because really, it's about avoiding defeat now, Chris, when you're 2-0 down.
Yeah. Look, I think at 2-0 down, there's still opportunities. Obviously, it's difficult because you've got to score 3 goals minimum to win. There should be enough quality in this side to do it. And as I say, I mean that with all due respect to the way Hibs are playing. Hibs are playing excellent today, and they deserve absolute credit. But we should have enough either in the first 11 or coming off the bench to make an impact here. But as I say, for me, it's we know the quality of the players that's out there, and it's not a quality issue today. It's an attitude and a work ethic issue, and the manner in which they're playing. It's these players are the top players in the country, So they should be able to do the basics better than any other player in the country. And at the moment, they're not showing that. So they really need to just pull their socks up, take on whatever insight the manager provides at halftime, and go out there and do their job. And if they do their job and do it to the level that they've done all through the season, they'll win. So I wouldn't be worried until it's about 80, 83 minutes and we're still 2-0 down. If that's the case, then I'll start getting worried. But up to this point, I've still got faith that this team will do it. I can see it looks as though Jota's coming on, which is great. I think we need that level of invention. We need someone that's been showing the kind of passion he's been showing in the last few games. And you're hoping that the teammates around him will lift their game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not over. Not quite yet. It will take a mammoth turnaround in the second half, but we do have the players, Chris, you're right. Let's go and join the action and join us at full time, where hopefully we are in better spirits on a Celtic State of Mind.